Hey everybody, Max Aita here, head coach for Team Juggernaut. I'm here to talk to you today about transitional phases. So transitional phases, resensitization, and long-term planning could be the title of what this video is going to be about. One thing that I want to get across here is that transitional phases play a major role in the training process and are necessary to further progress in the long term. And what is a transitional phase? A transitional phase is just a period of time that is of lower volume, lower intensity, generally easier training that's put in place to take you from your current state, generally after a competition, into the state you're trying to be in, which is ready to do another training cycle. Transitional phases can be really short, like a week, or really long, like 2 or 3 months. So understand that transitional phases have a big spectrum of where they can fall, and that the size of them and the proximity of them to competitions. So my personal experience with transitional phases were that I did none of them. And that was a big problem for my lifting. We never took time after competitions or after heavy days to really recuperate and recover from the training we had done. 2 good examples here of transitional phases doing what they're supposed to do would be Alyssa Ritchie. She competed at the World Championships and the Pan Am Games, these major meets. After both of those events, we took a specific time frame designated to transitioning, which was about 3 to 4 weeks in each case, where she had training that was either really, really light, almost complete rest, or very, very different, more GPP, CrossFit type work, where she took a break from the barbell, took a little break from the lifts, and that really helped her completely recover both physically but also mentally from the sport. She didn't get burned out because she took time from that. And then another great example would be Ilya Ilin. In 2013, when Chad Smith and I went down and saw Ilya Ilin, Klokov, and Vasily Polovnikov do a big demonstration, big seminar, Ilya said that he took an entire year off after the Olympics. And that might be an excessive amount of time, but I think that's a good lesson for us to learn, in that transitional phases really help to keep you in the sport for a longer period of time. He's obviously at the highest level of sport competition, or he was back then, where taking a year off was merited because it gave him a chance to completely recover, probably regroup, mentally, physically. He did a lot of light kind of bodybuilding, regular kind of GPP training. And he was in shape to train again. Then when he started training again, he ramped up and obviously did super well after that. Brought himself back into shape. One other thing, or the kind of main things we're trying to accomplish in a transitional phase, are recovery, rehabilitation, and resensitization. So recovery, that's just going to be the process of allowing our body to return to the state of readiness, eliminating any fatigue, getting rid of any kind of boredom, getting rid of any kind of monotony or stagnation, right? Getting back to baseline, essentially. Rehabilitation, this is kind of included more in the sense that you're probably going to be beat up after a training cycle and after meet. It doesn't mean you're going to be injured. You shouldn't plan on being injured after a training cycle, but you may be, have some aches and pains, have some nagging things, maybe like a hip shift or something that kind of you had to deal with those last couple weeks or months going into a competition, that now, you want to really sit down and address those, right? If you got a bad elbow or shoulder, take time to specifically rehabilitate those things. And then finally, resensitization, right? The goal of resensitization is to do a period of training that's a little bit easier, it's a little bit lighter, so that when you transition again into a normal training block of higher volume, you're going to be sensitive and respond to that volume, right? If you go from competition to transitional phase, but your transitional phase is really high volume and it feels just like another beginning to another training cycle, and then you're like, after that, I'm going to do a normal training cycle, and you don't notice that there's any adjustment, you're not really getting the same benefit. You already have some maybe adaptive resistance because you've been hammering on the volume. That would be an example of not resensitizing yourself to that volume. We want to take a step back so that we're doing a little bit more than we were before the competition. We have to start getting back in shape, but not so much that we're already exhausting our abilities to recover from and adapt to higher volume training. So that resensitization period is important. We want to make sure that when we start our normal training cycle after the transition, we're ready to make the most out of that training cycle. We're going to benefit from it a lot. Practical application of transitional phases. Transitional phases should be planned according to the year calendar to maximize the previous training cycle, right? So getting recovered, rehabilitating yourself, and then also to improve the future training blocks. So resensitizing yourself and just preparing yourself for future training cycles where you do a transitional block, you've recovered, you've decayed fatigue, you're back to normal. Now you're ready to start ramping up for normal training, and that's the perfect way to do it. So transitional phases need to be put in place ahead of time. Basically, they should be planned at the beginning of your training cycle so that you know exactly when and where they're going to be, so you can make the most out of it. I would say there's kind of 3 types of transitional blocks. The first would be like a recovery or bridge type where, planned rest after competition to allow for quicker recovery or return to normal training. Just kind of best planned right after an intense months or in between 2 shorter training cycles. This would be like a very short transitional phase, maybe a couple weeks or a week, where you maybe didn't peak for a competition, you just kind of maxed out in the gym, but you're going to do another like 6 to 8 weeks training into another competition. The transitional phase would be good in there where you have a chance to kind of back down, accomplish those 3 things you're trying to accomplish, and then start training again. It's a little bit more than a deload, but it's not entirely a whole new block of general training. The second type would be like a rehabilitation type. This would be like you're probably going to end up in this because you're forced to, where maybe you have something that's just nagging so much or irritating you so much, you need to dedicate some time to fixing that. So that's going to be, any amount of time that it's going to take to really shore that up. It doesn't necessarily mean that this transitional block is long enough to be like a full 6 or 8 weeks where you're like just stopping normal training. It's more or less like a big Band-Aid where you're going to put a couple of weeks in place to really, if your elbow's hurting, you're stopping all overhead stuff or jerk stuff, and you're just addressing that as best you can to kind of keep you moving through the training cycle. This is the kind of phase that you wouldn't plan out, obviously, but you'd have it in there and know what you're going to do if you say, run into some issues, right? But you need to keep this cycle going so you can peak for a big meet. And then finally would be like a full off season. This is the kind of thing where, like we talked about Alyssa or Ilya, meet's done, competition's done. You're going to spend 2 months, real easy training, getting back in shape, doing some different stuff, more aerobic things, just outside the normal spectrum of what you've been doing for the last, 12 to 16 weeks. And that full off season could last really any amount of time, just depends on the lifter. If you're not lifting a ton of weight, if you're doing, 100 kilo snatches and your body weight's 105, you probably don't need an off season, but you do need to have some time planned in the year where you maybe step back a little bit and let yourself regroup. I think the biggest mistake I made for a long time as an athlete was not taking those times off, not taking time to just step back, rebuild things, recover, fix any issues, and then also let myself be resensitized to the volume I was doing. So the ups and downs, kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back mentality here with an off season. And then just some general guidelines here for actually how to construct a transitional block. And I'll just kind of run through these pretty straightforward for you guys. But one is going to be, reduce heavy strength work. Transitional phase should not be the start of your squat cycle. It should not be something where you're like, I'm going to bring my deadlift up 20 kilos in the next 4 months or 4 weeks. Low average intensity, right? The average intensity of all the volume we're doing should be on the low end of the spectrum relative to a competition phase or a preparatory phase. So it's going to be the easiest from a intensity standpoint. Doesn't mean that the volume is going to be super, super low, but you will have a low average intensity. You're going to include higher repetition sets, right? And this would really be more a matter of if you aren't doing high repetition sets in a peaking phase, which you shouldn't be, then they're appropriate here. This is something that's going to be different, something you wouldn't normally do, sets of 5 or 6 in the snatch, in the clean, high rep sets in the squat, 10s or 12s or something, maybe even a little higher than that. Just this is the time to have those high rep sets. And then little or no lifts above 90%. And that would really just pertain to the classic lifts, the classic lifts. We don't need to test our snatch and clean and jerk in a transitional phase because we're probably not going to be making a lot of progress on it. That's not our goal here. So you shouldn't plan a ton of these high intensity lifts. There shouldn't be like the weekly max out on Friday afternoon with your buddies during a transitional phase. It should be a pretty moderate training cycle and should accomplish those goals. And then finally, a large variation in exercise selection. So this is going to be something where we're going to have, the things we don't normally do. If you're a weightlifter, maybe that's things like safety bar squats, or maybe some, wide stance like sumo deadlifts or something, or pulls with a different grip width, maybe medium width, like halfway between snatch and clean. Maybe some bench pressing, just that kind of stuff where there's more variation and it's a pretty big spectrum of different exercises. That's going to help, one, with monotony, and two, with giving you access to exercises you can use to rehab certain things. So that's kind of the gist of this with transitional phases: when, where, how, and why. If you guys like this video, go check us out on YouTube or check us out at jtsstrength.com.